Hey guys, welcome to Prestige Catfish, and today we're going to talk about fall fishing and winter fishing, and I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to catch bigger and better fish in the fall and winter for your catfishing adventures, so stay tuned. Alright guys, welcome back. And today, like I said, we're going to talk about fall and winter catfishing. It's getting that time of year where the weather's starting to cool down a little bit and start thinking into fall winter bites. And what does that mean for catfish and catfishing, especially for bank fishermen? This is more geared towards bank fishermen. I get a lot of questions on how to find fish in the fall and the winter. Does the bite slow down? I know a lot of people stop fishing and go hunting and things of that nature. For me, fall and winter is excellent, especially for my big fish that you can catch from the bank. I mean your 20, 30s, 40, 50, 60 pounders. And it's not that hard to catch them. And I'm going to give you some tips here starting out on how to locate and find fish, okay? So the first thing that we want to do is I advise everybody, whatever body of water that you're fishing in your state or region, get off the beaten path, okay? What I mean by that is don't go to the spots where everybody goes to fish because it's easy and convenient. Okay, those are overfished, too many people there, a lot of stuff to get you hung up on from people breaking off lines and things like that. Look for stuff off the beaten path. And the best way to do this is to pull up your body of water on Google Maps. Preferably I like the satellite view, okay, because I can see roads and things like that. So I pull it up in satellite view and I look for spots that can be pretty good, especially off points, whether it be a southern point or northern point or any kind of point that I'm looking at, okay? I want to see if it's accessible, meaning can I access it publicly without going across private property or cutting through somebody's land or going through somebody's yard or a golf course or something like that. Can I access it? And then if I find out that I can access it, how much of a trip is it going to take to get there, you know? I might have to carry a lot of gear, or should I go minimum gear because it might be a little walk. You may have to walk to some of these spots just to get to them because you can't just, you know, ride up to them and park your car and you're right there. So that's what I suggest. So once you look on Google Maps, okay, and you find you a spot or you find several spots, then I suggest that you take that same lake and pull it up in a topo map, okay, or Navitronics map. And what that map is going to tell you, the body of water that you're looking at, it's going to give you the depths, okay, of how deep it is from the bank out to the points, okay, and where you're going. So then you know it's okay, am I fishing a shallow flat, or is there a drop off, or do I have access to deep water and things like that. And then can I get to it? Is the deep drop off pretty far out there and I can't reach it? So those are the things that you want to start looking at from that aspect too, okay? How far is it from deep water to shallow water to the bank spot, okay? And I'll go more into that, why that's important in a minute. Okay, so then what you want to do once you figure that out is, can I reach it? You know, can I reach the deep water if my rod and reel is set up? Me personally, I can reach it with no problems because I have two 10-foot and two 12-foot pro angler rods, okay? And I'm fishing nothing but, you know, round Abu Garcias, you know, from Sweden on them. So I have no problem getting out there. So that's another thing that you want to make sure is, can I reach to them, okay? So that's another thing to look at. Can I reach them? So here's the thing why it's important to reach them. A lot of people think that wintertime fishing is bad, and it's not, because you can't catch bait because the bait is going deep and things like that, which is true. You will have a hard time catching bait, okay? So that's another thing you have to remember. What am I going to use for bait? And I tell everybody, yeah, you looking on these forums and on websites and, you know, Facebook pages, and people have the Kool-Aid concoction with the chicken breast and garlic powder and things like that, and they work. But the best thing for catching nice sized catfish is fresh bait. Nothing beats it. I don't care what anybody says. Nothing beats it, because you know why? That's what the fish naturally eat. Okay, that's what they're hunting every day. Shad, brim, things of that nature, mullets or skipjack, whatever. Whatever bait that's naturally in the body of water that you're fishing is what you want to fish with, if you can get a hold to it. Now, that's not always easier said than done, okay? I know it's a lot easier said than done. So, if you can, get the natural bait. Take a little small rod, with some worms. Or what I like to use, get a little small hook and put little pieces of Slim Jim on them, or whatever kind of thing you want to catch the brim with. And catch the brim, and as you catch brim, cut them up and use it for cut bait. And for me, other than shad, brim is the second best option, okay? Because we have shad in our waters down here in Texas. Big gizzard shads. So big gizzard shads. So that's what I prefer. But if I can't, I go brim. And then if I can't get brim, I'll try to get a carp and cut it up. So those are my three main go-to baits. It's the bait that the fish naturally sees, they naturally smell it, they naturally taste it. So 9 times out of 10, if the fish are feeding and you get that in front of them, they're going to take it every time. Now, in the winter time, if you have a boat, you can go out and on your electronics and find the balls of shad and things like that and throw your cast net. It's harder to throw in the wintertime from the bank, okay? Because the shad move out deep. Unless you get up early in the morning before sunlight and throw off boat ramps and things, you may get some like that. So here's another tip for you guys, okay? Shad do not like cold water. They die in cold water. So how do they survive? They run up in creeks and creek beds. That's the best thing I can tell you. Is find you a creek that has, a little bit of water to it, at least 4, 5, 6 feet deep, and make sure that it has like a lot of brown dirt and rocks and things like that, because in the wintertime when the sun comes out, it heats that stuff up, okay? And it heats up the water just a little bit that the bait fish can tolerate it. And that's what I do. In the wintertime, I go to White Rock Creek here in Dallas and throw my cast net one time and have plenty of bait for the rest of the day, rest of 2 days if I really want to get, real personal with it. But yeah, one time and you got it. You might have to throw your net a couple of times to find them. If you can't see them, the cloud from the bank, you might have to throw your net to find them. But that's what I do. Or if you're on the bank and you're fishing and you see the birds and you see the water boiling and you see the birds diving, hey, that's another thing to tell you that the bait is kind of close or the bait is near the banks. You might want to try to throw your net in, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult. So find you a creek, try to throw natural bait like that for shad and things like that, or try to catch you some brim. If not, if all else fails, I do go with shrimp sometimes if I can't catch bait. Hey, shrimp is a natural fishy type seafood, and catfish do love shrimp when you can get them in front of them. And then you can put your garlic or Kool-Aid, whatever you want on it to make it better if you think that'll work. Okay, so that's what you want to look for. Now, back to the depths of the water. When I'm fishing my 4 rods, I have them at 4 different locations, okay? I have maybe 1 shallow, 1 medium shallow, 1 kind of further out towards the deep water, and then 1 in the deep water, okay? Because like I say, I look for deep water with a drop off, and what I want to do is I want to get 1 in the deep water, way in the deep water, okay? For maybe some big boys hanging out down there. I want to keep 2 kind of shallow and see, maybe some up there, looking for bait, things like that. And then I want to keep 1 right on that ledge or shelf of the deep water where there's catfish, they come out of the deep water and come into the shallows to feed. And I want to have a bait right there just to try to entice them. And then what I'll do is, as the day goes on, if I'm having more looks at different depths than other depths, then I'll casually work my rods to where they're all at the same length from the bank. But I always keep 1 deep. So that's one other tip for you is work with wherever you are, work it. Don't just try to cast your rods as far as they'll go and have them all the same depth, because you may be overshooting the fish and you don't know it, or you may be undershooting them. So when you have your rod staggered, length here, one here, one here, and one here, then you can kind of adjust accordingly to see, I'm getting more bites on this rod versus I'm getting more bites on this rod. So that's another thing. Now here's another thing that you want to look for when you're bank fishing and it's the winter time, so in the fall. So this is a little bit on the gross side, but bear with me, okay? Common birds, they roost and nest in the winter time, okay? Now these birds hunt a lot of shad, okay? A lot of shad. That's their main diet. But their digestive systems aren't that great, and the shad pass through them half digested, sometimes not digested at all, because of the way their metabolism and their digestive system works. And of course, it passed through them when it roosted in the nest and in the trees, and it falls in the water. Catfish know this, and they go and they tear them up. So if you are fishing somewhere and you see a nest of them up above you, or they roosting up above you in trees, and you can reach to that tree some kind of way on the bank or casting out anyway, if you can get a bait underneath that tree, I guarantee you won't wait long at all before you get a bite. And while you might not catch monsters like that, you can consistently catch fish, anywhere from 2 to 5 to 6 pounds. That's what you're going to mostly catch when you're fishing like that. But if that's what you're after and you want some eater fish or some box fish to fill up your freezer, that's a good way. Now, there may be a big boy swimming in there, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to probably have 2 to 5 pounders in there. So that's another thing that you want to look for in the fall and winter time, okay? Is look for those birds. Look for the birds diving in the waters and hunting them, and then look for the birds that are roosting in trees that's above the water, because those are going to be your go-to spots for fall and winter time fishing. So now, just because you had luck at one spot at one time doesn't mean you're going to have luck at that spot again. It could be the same exact conditions. It could be the same exact location. It could be the same exact temperature with the same exact bait. And you may have a ball one day, and you might go back there the same next day, and you might not get nothing at all. And it's just the fish's pattern, okay? Know your fish patterns. And if you don't know, ask the older guys who fish that lake, who fish that spot. They'll tell you. Like my spots that I fish, I know the catfish patterns and when they're going to come. And some people say, well, if you don't get a bite within 20 minutes, you need to pack up and move and go to and find a fish that are biting. Where I fish at, I fish riverbeds and channels. They're eventually going to come. I don't have to wait long. It may not be a whole mess of them, but I might get 2 or 3 or 4 of them. But I know that they're going to run that channel, because that's the pattern that the fish have on that particular spot at that lake. So the lake you're fishing, ask the older gentlemen, or not even older, but people who fish there all the time. They can probably tell you, hey, the catfish run here, 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 and here, or they might come up here during the evening time or in the morning time or something like that, okay? So that's another good point for you, is just ask questions if you don't know of people who fish that area constantly. Just like I fish my area constantly, I know. So next tip is about baits. Everybody said, well, I want to catch massive fish. I mean, you need big baits to catch big fish. I would say that's half true, okay? Half false. And here's why I'm going to tell you that. In the wintertime, when the temperature gets to a certain degree, the shad are going to start dying. And I'm talking about like the gizzard shads. I'm talking about just the little regular thread fin shads, okay? They're going to start dying. And the fish are going to feed on those tremendously. The catfish, bass, white bass, stripers, hybrids, they're all gonna feed on them, okay? So you don't necessarily need big baits to catch big fish. And here's an example. And one of my favorite spots I go to, me and my buddy went fishing. There was some more guys already there. You know, they were cool. They let us, you know, we all fished together. And I had went to the creek, you know, the day before, caught some big gizzard shads, put them on ice. Had some little small ones in there too. And the other guys had gizzard shads where they brought whatever they came from. And we was out there for about 4 hours. Nothing. None of us. So finally, I just kind of put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, well, you know what? The shad off's happening right now. Let's downsize our baits. And we downsized from big pieces of gizzard shads and heads to the smaller ones about like this. That's about it, man. I would say about 2 to 3 inches. When we downsized our baits, put them in the same location, I mean, that day was epic. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50 pounders caught. We all caught them from that same spot. Of course, and a lot of box fish. So that just goes to show, just because we had small baits, that's what the big fish were even eating on. They didn't want the big baits because they wanted the small ones because they were dying off and it was the easy catch meal for them. So we mimic our baits to mimic dying off shad. And hey, we got our 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50 pounders that day. And it was an epic day, man. All the way well into nighttime until my wife called me and told me to come home. So always just try to make your bait mimic what's going on in your current conditions. So here in Texas right now, even though, you know, it's October, it's still pretty warm here. Our waters are still pretty warm. I can still go throw my cast net off a dock or a boat ramp and still catch plenty of gizzard shad right now. So that's not a problem for me. Wherever you are in the region or in the United States, you may be a little bit colder. Your bait fishermen may have already started to migrate to deeper waters. So use this knowledge that I'm telling you and use it accordingly to your surroundings. Because what may work here in Texas as far as bait may not be working up north somewhere in Michigan or somewhere like that where temperatures are already getting pretty cold or getting a lot cooler here. Yeah, it's still reaching mid 80s, sometimes up to the upper 80s, and I think it's supposed to be like 92 tomorrow or Monday. So yeah, it's still pretty warm and I can still catch bait fish. But I know it's coming. It's just gonna come around mid-November or December, depending on Texas, because Texas weather is so finicky. When that shad starts going deep and I can't catch them on the banks in the lakes anymore, I know that I got 2 or 3 spots or creeks that I can go catch them, and I can catch them plenty there. So if I can't catch anything at all, I just have to, you know, go buy some shrimp and take my luck with that, and then take my little pole and try to catch some brim and cut them up for cut bait. That never fails either. So I can always catch brim. If I can't catch any other kind of bait fish, I can catch brim. So that's what you want to look at right there too. So that's another thing that fish and catfish do, is they follow the bait fish. Okay, so try to follow the bait fish. You follow the bait fish, you follow the catfish. Okay, so when you set them to these locations and you want to go fishing and you found your spot on the map and you see where the water is and you figure out how you're going to throw your rods and you figure out, you know, what bait you're going to use and if you can catch bait, and if everything seems to go, the last tip I'm going to tell you is to watch the weather. Okay, get on the weather channel or whatever weather app you have on your phone and look at the weather. That's important, and here's why. What I'm looking at when I look at the weather is I'm looking at sunrise and fall times, and I'm also looking at the wind and the direction. Okay, but mainly just the wind, because when you're catfishing, I will tell you this: the wind is your friend. I repeat it, the wind is your friend. Okay, when the wind is blowing or you got a steady breeze or gust of breezes coming through, anywhere from 5 to 15 to 20 miles an hour, that is your friend. A lot of people say it's too windy. No, it's not the case. When the wind blows, it moves and pushes the oxygen around in the water. When that happens, the fish get more oxygen in the water, and guess what? They feel more lively. They feel more active. Just like humans, when we have more oxygen, when you see, players on the football game that you're watching and they go get the oxygen on the sideline and all of a sudden they back in the game and doing amazing things, oxygen makes you feel great. And it's the same thing with the fish. Oxygen makes them feel great. They feel active. They want to go chase bait fish and feed. So wind is your friend. Now, wind direction, that can be a little bit tricky. You ask 10 different fishermen, you're going to get 10 different answers, okay? Mostly, I want the wind blowing in my face, okay? That's because people think that the wind is going to blow the bait fish, to you. No, that's really not the correct answer, okay? It's going to blow the stuff that's floating in the water, the plankton. It's going to blow that to you, and then the bait fish are going to follow that to feed on it, and then in return the catfish are going to follow it shallow so it can eat those. So it's not really blowing a bait fish in, it's blowing in what the bait fish eat, and then it's a chain reaction. So you got plankton, then you got bait fish, and then you got catfish coming behind them. So that's why wind is important, okay? Now, I have been multiple times where it's not blowing in my face, okay? It's just blowing, period. And I still had great luck, So whether it's blowing out the north, south, east, or west, you got your little sayings, wind out the east, fish bite the least. Wind out the west, fish bite the best, things like that. Wind out the south, blows the bait in their mouth. I don't know how true any of that is, but I do know when the wind is blowing and the wind is actively blowing, that the fish are more active, and if you can find them and you're in the spot where they are, then you're gonna have a good day. So those are the tips I have for you right now on my fall and winter catfishing. I get excited around this time of year. I know a lot of people get excited around this time of year because they go deer hunting. I get excited because I'm a catfisherman, and I know that from the bank, hey, I can catch those trophy catfish coming with pretty much ease. All I gotta do is find and locate them, okay? So if you guys have any tips or any suggestions that you want to give others, hey, leave a comment down below, okay? And because we're all here to gain knowledge and we're all here to help each other. And the information I'm giving you, try it out. Like I say, it may work where you are and it may not. Because remember, I'm in the South, I'm in Texas, so our temperatures are a little bit different versus somebody who's in Illinois or something like that. But as far as the bait goes wise, that's a little bit different depending on where you are. But everything else is pretty much spot on, okay? So I've tried it, tested it. I see what works, what don't works. And sometimes you can be doing everything right and you still don't catch anything, okay? That's why it's called fishing. Because if you went out there and caught fish every day, it'd be called catching and not fishing. So, but hey, if you like the content, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe and hit that like button so you get notifications coming in. I'm going to be doing a few more videos here about fall and winter catfishing, and then from there, I'm gonna do a video about my setup and about my gear and how I use it, because I get a lot of questions like, man, what kind of rods you use, what kind of reels you use, what setup should I go with, and things like that. And it's a whole nother topic. So be looking for that video coming out here pretty soon too. So thanks guys for checking me out. Like I say, leave comments. If you have questions, leave questions in the comments and I answer everybody. And until then, tight lines, and thanks for watching.